question for you. I wonder how long it will take.
What do you say to all those people that say that you guys have no idea what faith is?
So, we actually thought we got less no idea what faith is and more no idea what science is, which would amuse me. So, to be honest, that will be the first episode that I think we ever write a response to some of the comments. And it's not really, I was disappointed. I was disappointed because, to me, faith is one of those areas it's affected so much of human history, right? Even the world we live in today, half the colloquialisms we know are from the Bible. Our money says in God we trust, right? Faith has had such a huge impact on human society that it's a concept that we shouldn't just have this huge reaction that we never explored, right? And that was really the point of the video, and we saw a lot of people saying that faith has no place in games and faith has no place in science, right? And to me, all science is the moment that you begin the exploration. There are a lot of things about it you have to believe in if you're going to actually exercise science. First, you have to believe in intent. Then you have to believe your senses. You have to trust that the science that you're doing. I mean, you hear this in the episode, right? We have all those cliche examples. MA matrix, obviously, right? But the best thing is, you and a colleague and a blind person go and both observe the same set of graphs. Whose observations are actually valid, right? Whose observations are objectively true? There's some belief that we have to say to all these things, but science just starts from that. Whereas faith, that's the main intent, right? For most religions. But what made me disappointed was the fact that we have such an instantaneous rejection of the idea that science may have anything to learn from faith. But at the same time, many of us would be upset when someone of faith rejects the idea that reason has any place in faith, and to me it equally does. And so to cut ourselves off from this vast wealth of human experience because it's something that makes us uncomfortable, because we venerate science to the degree that it hampers our ability to do it, right? To be venerate science to the degree that people often venerate religion is somewhat frightening to me. And I thought as a community, and I think we are, but I thought as a community, we were so much further past that. We were so much more open-minded than some of the things you can see on the other side of the internet, where people would have a knee-jerk reaction to ideas of science that I feel like we probably might respond to, probably will short.
Yeah, we do have an episode kind of planned for that. It was I expected we were going to get a big response, and maybe it probably upset a few people. Guaranteed we can look at that episode because it's almost impossible not to with that subject. But yeah, we will have another episode kind of addressing that, and I don't know if that will help or make it worse. But
the discussion's worth it, really.
Yeah.
To me, when we went into that episode, we talked about this. We knew that we were going to set message boards on fire. We all have day jobs, right? It doesn't matter. The most important thing is starting a discussion, having a discussion that's worth having. And so, if we lose fans of it, that is totally acceptable. If we can at least start that discussion, start the idea that this is something that can be rationally talked about. Because there's actually nothing on the internet more inflammatory, more scary than talking about the fact that faith has some place or form in existence.
Thank you guys for that.
Sort of in the back, mid. Yes.
Speaking of episodes, so when you go to that voice acting,
When are we going to do the voice acting games?
So, here's the deal, right? Indefinite future. So, we have finally gotten all the voice acting clips together, and I will have to take a blood on this one. We finally got all the clips from voice actors because we wanted to have that episode actually have real voice actors talking about stuff, talking about their existence because frankly, I'm a voice actor who's never been part of it. I had to do some voice direction, but never actually done any voice acting.
And it would be criminal if a voice acting episode was just nothing but me talking the entire time.
But I have so many episodes right now on my 2 wait list that I'm super interested in that I haven't gotten. I keep being like, oh, next week, but I just do this one. I'll get the voice acting episode. So it's coming when I get bored of the episodes.
How's this? If we've gotten to May and he hasn't done it yet, I will read it. Look what I did. Okay, next question. You were front.
Okay, so I'm trying to look for old games that I can actually look at to try to learn about design from things.
That's awesome here. It's your game though.
The advent of computers and games. What, like, the episode that you did a while back about preserving past games had some interesting titles. Can you give any others that you can think of that would be great design?
So as designers, right, the first place you go is tabletop. The first place you go is games that literally you have all the rules and you can see how the rules directly translate to experience. After you look at some of the great classic tabletop games, arcade, early Nintendo games, early Atari games, very often have that simple and direct correlation that's the most observable. I would say that things like Robotron, Missile Command, Galactica, Centipede, Pac-Man, and an exercise that I highly recommend is taking those little games and see if you can write out every single rule of those games. See if just observation, because it forces you to observe, to really understand them. And it's really impossible task. It's very hard. But see if you can write out all the rules of those games. And just go back to the classic game library. That's going to be the first place I think to look.
You've been a lot more like the last 5 years. Yes.
Also,
Okay, well, by the way, everyone can hear us like in the back, right? Like I don't know how. Okay, cool. Just make sure.
oh, I was just thinking, at the end of this, maybe I just want, I can also give you a list of games which are awesome, in my opinion, in the older section. But those would be less design relevant at the beginning of your design career than just going through the portfolio of character names and really so you can deconstruct. As a designer, deconstruct rules, so you can understand why the rules make these choices that they do.
Cool. Okay. This side, I think. Yes. Here in the front. Yes.
So last year, for several people, I went down, I guess you're pretty close to why. So I came here to lobby these sort of people. I had already talked to ECA putting together another lobby trip when these laws inevitably come up, right? For me, the reason I wanted to really respond to the episode is that I really like to have some thoughts in terms of solutions. I really like to make sure that right now there's just really bad measures for them to do things that every significant scenario is either statistically insignificant or funded by groups that have a clear vested interest in one outcome or the other. So the research just isn't there. And we will almost certainly do one when laws are inevitably proposed to shift blame to video games. But as far as what we can do as a community, I mean, one is just be good upstanding citizens, right? most of society makes it out to be. Or worse yet, the fellows in long black coats, which I don't know like those just that much. And then beyond that, right, as just fans, right, and just like you have here said to me, this is something I want to hear about, we will write up, right? If you talk to other media outlets, if you write to other media outlets, starting, and don't just write to our media. There's everybody, I guess CNN does that. Pretty much everybody with CNN, Fox News, like MSNBC, USA Today, I think the New York Times, have a video game, right? And write to them about actually doing this as and when they bring this up, if people bring up a name, write to the else. It sounds silly, right? It seems like a letter write should be totally ineffective in this world of 7 billion people, but it's really not. And then, additionally, I think there are lots of positive demonstration posts. I was actually happy to see, even though it was a totally gesture, that they were people just took a day away from violent online games as a gesture of respect, right? As an acknowledgement. And then finally, I feel like you can actually make your voice heard, right? Like there are plenty of places on the internet and plenty of like local papers and stuff. Like I've done before, well before I took this, right? We have local weekly local papers. I wrote it and said, here's an article. Can you put it on that? And I think this is highly controversial, very interesting. So make your voice heard. That would be my main suggestion.
Okay. This side, you're right here, Iapos.
I know it's a lot of speculation, but I was wondering if you had any thoughts or comments on the idea of a Steam box or like a Valorant console, what kind of stuff you have?
We were talking about it on the way here. We're really excited by it, by that happening. On the way here. I'm just really excited about seeing one, what Valve will do, because Valve does a lot of great things, but also just having to see the rest of the console market then suddenly have to compete with them at what they do. That's really exciting. If something like the first time you get a serious Steam sale that happens on the Steam box, people suddenly say that they could be buying these games that are still on the shelf somewhere for like $40, $50 for $7.50.
So actually, if you go to the Jason Hall show today, like they've got an interview with me about predictions for 2015, which is always dangerous for giving anything, but I think this Steam box will have a huge impact, right? As Dan just said, the thing that was interesting is how it's going to kick the paradigm that Sony and Microsoft has set out, right? We've kind of ground through a few generations of getting a better graphics card, a little more memory in your plastic box. That's next gen. I think Steam is forced them to rethink a lot of what they do. And so I think that's going to be what's exciting about the Steam box. I think it's going to be a huge impact on the market next year.
I can't wait. I see every Steam game I get now is an investment. So this side. You in the middle and start to, yes.
So one of my favorite things in games is discovery, whether it's like a gameplay mechanic or with enemies around you. But at the same time, one of the frustrating things is when there's an insubstantial tutorial or just, they're not explaining enough to me and you're just stuck. So how do you tell developers to work that balance of showing versus letting the player figure things out themselves, which will radical?
Well, so Portal is probably the best example. Because Portal is actually all the tutorial, but simultaneously, it's about teaching you fundamentals of the mechanics, right? Teaching you the mechanics themselves, and then you have to think with those mechanics, so you can discover all the interesting ramifications of that rule set, right? And that's really what you want to do with your sort of tutorial. You want to get them to think of that, so they discover red shirts.
You know, I was supposed to be here last year. She's not here this year. I'm starting to think you're old now.
Allison is so busy. So she, after the THQ collapse, she got a new job and like, she's trying to hold on to this one.
Not my actual question. What is the best example of the use of the story of man versus society in games? What do you think?
Oh, we got the ears covered.
Bioshock is a contender, right? That's too easy.
And then, of course, you go to the whole System Shock line. All right, I think and I don't think I do cast Hero Apos. I think so.
Yeah. This is the rest of the panelists.
Should we come back to this one? Let's spontaneously come back to this one.
Yeah, like,
Because
the first.
the word is the best for me. I can think of some. I can be like, is that really the best? All right, well, we'll go to this.
Okay, we'll think about it. You. I was fun to watch from a distance.
So in this case, look at the principal developer's past games, because he has a very interesting list and a very interesting history of horribly buggy half-finished games. Also, I think that honestly, I mean, this is going to sound too, but as soon as it was called World War Z, I was like, the number of things that you're trying to like gain extra consumers from their idea, and this was clearly a play on World War Z as soon as you started that. You really shouldn't try and abuse someone else's IP for its value before they get a game out of that name, because as soon as the movie comes out, somebody's going to be a World War Z game. What else? I personally love productions from Russia, but Russia's Q&A is not up to U.S. European standards yet. I love, we actually talked about this a little bit earlier. I love Elden Legacy. I love what is the Heroes of Magic like game? I love World of Tanks, right? But all of them, this is something you kind of have to accept. There's a little bit less. And then finally, anyone who makes those series of claims, right? There were some pretty expansive claims that I was pretty sure they weren't going to be able to live up to. And I feel like most of you guys have a pretty good sense on the money they raised and the time that they had with it. They offered. They said they would offer a lot more than we could possibly deliver. So I guess those are main red flags for me. My main red flags are really this question of how much you deliver and then really how much you're ripping off other things like me.
I was glad seeing Steam jump on it and like actually pull it. Yeah, I was just glad seeing them do that and kind of acknowledge the mistake of maybe not letting that happen in the first place. But, yeah.
I think it was just a couple.
That was the question, right? Like the second one? Okay.
I'd have to think further about it, but like it really was the IP. As soon as I saw them clearly, and you had, I don't know if you saw the construction of the stealing part from devices, right? As soon as you're talking number of games, like any game which tries that, they're never any good. You see it all the time on that, and they're just never there. Right? Anybody who really wants to have a party wants to have a whole new such as So,
it is a really good question. At some point, actually, you're right. We have to do an episode about purchasing for the non-gamer, because my brother buys games all the time, my nieces and nephews. And he goes and picks up licensed titles from exactly, right? And he goes and picks up things he recognizes. So he picks up like WWE titles. And like, just to ask, I can give you some recommendations. Don't subject my nieces and nephews to some of the real, like, oh my god. Anyway. I got some Skylanders this year. They were ecstatic.
Right on. Okay, next to the horns. Oh, he's handling now. Yeah, it's you. Okay.
What do you think we can expect this year? Like, what are the interesting topics that we're looking forward to?
He couldn't sleep last night. We wrote like 4 episodes apparently, so.
So the way our production schedule works, by the way, it is I write like half of like 14 episodes, and then we'll run out of content, and then I will actually finish those episodes, and that is our production pipeline. So what can you expect? Number one thing you can definitely expect is I started a poll on Facebook, checked what people were interested in. People said they were really interested in hearing about gaming from other parts of the world, and about the games industry in other parts of the world, not Europe, not Japan, not South Korea, not the US. And so we're going to do a series about global gaming, and so you're going to see several episodes at least about gaming in other markets and games from other markets. So that's one thing. Number two, I want to do more science episodes.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So last night I was busy writing an episode on whether it is a good bet or a bad bet to be paying for XCOM.
Like an actual XCOM, right? Hey, like we should actually be funding XCOM right now.
Right. Like, what is, I don't know if you guys know the Fermi paradox and the Drake equation, but they're basically calculations for the probability of extraterrestrial life and the probability of extraterrestrial life landing here. And so there will be at some point an episode about the reasonableness or non-reasonableness of funding XCOM, whether or not that was a good plan by those guys. It wasn't a good plan for why did we get XCOM either? And let's see what else we got. I finished Walking Dead, and we got a lot to talk about. Average game, in my opinion, I very rarely use it, right? But fascinating in terms of bringing back the adventure game, right? I think they figured out how to find the heart of the adventure game again, rather than just the mechanics which people have been trying to do it. They got rid of most of the mechanics that you see from old adventure games, but found what we cared about in them again. And so I think they figured out how to bring back the adventure game for the 21st century.
Alison's working on one on depth versus complexity right now. So that should be out. And if it's not the first one back, I'll need a second.
okay. Should I hand it out?
Yeah.
So, over summer, this is probably the biggest thing for me for the show. So in the last 2 months, I have been, so I try to speak to all these things, I try to speak to as many universities as I can. I've been trying to run my business and try to teach. And so I've been in Vegas, Mexico City, Austin, Boston, London, Bergen, Norway, I was also Ottawa, and between finished one, I've been flying back to Seattle, right? And I really want to take time to focus more on the show. And so I think over summer, I'm going to kickstart I want to write a book on design. And this is something I really haven't brought up anyone else but here. But if I can raise the minimum for it, I'm going to just take a year off, focus on extra credits, focus on being more available on the boards, being more available on Facebook, on Twitter, and also putting out this book on design. If I can raise a little bit more than that, I'd really like to release the ebook version for free, right? Because there's a lot of people who come up and say, "There's always start extra credits." Say, "I want to be a designer, but I have no idea where to start." And I'd like to, I have some thoughts on the answer to that problem, and I'd love to be able to just sort of give that away, right? Like have everybody have a place to go to get the first step in design. And so that plus just I'm much more focused on extra credits and growing extra credits is something that I would like to make happen. And so that's probably what we're doing. I'm in the process. I'm going to stay back in business. I'm actually going to probably, except for some educational work that we're doing that I feel morally obligated to do, I'm probably going to roll back consulting or stop consulting for a year so I can focus on these things. So that's probably my biggest thing for credits and conservation. Yeah.
Off topic. Lily wanted me to say that she's sorry she's not here and she wanted to say hi. So.
We are also sorry.
Yes, so.
She sends you love. It tells you that she has a very limited amount of love. She specified 3 hearts exactly.
3 heart emojis involved.
Just for that, I'm calling her really nice.
Very simply, I'm interested in writing and narrative and storytelling for games. So, what do you think would be unique challenges involving telling story, narrative, character development in games all?
So the hardest part for me about it is realizing that this is interactive, right? This isn't your story, this is their story. And it's much more complicated to write for an interactive piece, right? We see all the time Final Fantasies and critical productions that want to be movies. And we see that movies make better movies than games do, right? Just fact. So as an interactive writer, it's really about figuring out, setting out a space of possibility and letting the player explore it rather than telling you a narrative. And making that internal psychological need is probably the biggest challenge.
Okay, the hat.
So, I don't I know there's a lot of I actually think they released a lot of new games. I would like to see them survive this I don't think I'm the one that's something on allowing them another way out, right? And I think a lot of money got donated to charity because they did it. So screw it. I'm happy to see that there are CEOs who are just trying all sorts of creative ways to bail that out. They made some horrible missteps that were just disastrous and clear from miles away, right? We knew that tablet wasn't going to sell the Xbox, and we knew Homefront was a train wreck coming in. Those are bad things. But do I want to lose Metro? Do I want to lose Dawn of War? Do I want to lose Company Heroes? No. And so I'm ready to go for it, right? I don't want to see this become a thing that everybody, I don't want to see the whole indie bundle lose the humble and indie part of it, right? But I think it's circumstances here.
And charity. It's, when charities involved, it's hard to get mad at people because then you're kind of the douche. Like hearing that like George Lucas basically donated everything he made selling Star Wars to charity, then like, well, now I can't be mad at it anymore. Like, it's like, yeah, you gave $4 billion to kids, but you made movies I don't like.
thinks that he called on them. And let's see who has the gumption to stand up. Oh, we got one.
Okay, so I'm a big fighting fan. I, however, found things that have kind of hated that kind of approach. Some online community that happened with cross assault here. I know that this is happening in other super competitive style game too. I know in a perfect world, we would say, we shun those people or whatever, but realistically, what's the best way to just, kind of deal with that sort of stuff? Just, super questions, super, leaders of hate,
So,
misogyny, all that.
I have an answer that I want to give from within, sort of games as an individual gamer, but I thought I saw some of our friendly friends from the games media hanging out here. I'd love to drag you guys up and have you guys talk a little bit about what people can do to have this conversation, how we can have this conversation in a more public way, and how we can have this conversation without the sort of backlash. I mean, you see the comment threads whenever anyone's like, oh, this community is totally toxic. You see the backlash of racial epitaphs and sexual reference and misogyny, and it's terrible. So how do we have that conversation? So are you guys actually still here? Is the question. Do you see?
I saw it when I came in.
I did too. Structured folk? We got any structured folk in the house? Oh, you guys like oh, you're back there! What are the votes? You got because you can't be there for that long.
Sitting back there.
I feel like I throw you the most volatile questions. I don't need it. So yeah, how do we have this conversation in public? By the way, I introduce yourselves. Let me get the people in front of you.
Hi, I'm Dale North, the editor-in-chief of Destructbook.com.
I'm Chris Parker, I'm the news editor for Destructbook.com.
Let's get a hand for these.
I'm scared to ask.
I like the show. All right, so yeah, how do we have that conversation? Any thoughts? I know, it's really tough. I'll let you guys ponder on it for a minute while I talk about the sort of interaction that we can have. And you guys have heard me talk about the interaction we have with developers, right? I think there's some of you guys have maybe seen some of the stuff they did with the most recent Halo iteration that Microsoft did. I was very happy to see that occur. You may have seen what League did recently with not only the tribunal system, but for the first time you can report someone for good behavior. That's really how did it take us this long? And so on any of these games that have this built-in system, I mean, I've talked to a lot of these actions do have real consequences, like go we use these systems when they're made available to you, right? And when not, demand from the greatest game publishers. And as an individual, I know it's sometimes very hard to stand up, especially in the moment, to a lot of criticism, but you'd be surprised when they're not cool with us, right? Just like getting people to slow down and really reflect. It's not that, in general, there are some harm, but most people aren't that. A lot of the problem is that we, in a very competitive environment, we don't put any respect in these sort of things. And we as a community can learn just how we can better behave, how we can better competitive gaming community, a lot of this trash talk is table and take, right? Everyone knows that term, old people term, really older term. They form ads, they worse. Anybody who has to go to win is a bad player. I think in the fighting game community, we have to start looking at it that way, right? That it should actually be embarrassing for someone to try and get an important ad, right? Because that means they can't win just straight on skill. And I really think that's part of the ethos that we have to start. But yeah, why do you guys have any comments?
No, I was going to.
Why do I
Lost you about avoidance.
Oh yeah, you can throw it out. Yeah, right, ban the prototype. I mean, I don't know what else that, but yeah, they straight up banned one of the guys on the major teams for being a jerk. And I mean, that's a big aspirational part of the market, right? It's a lot of what drives people staying in the game is this idea that maybe we'll go pro. Man, there's a lot of games that could be that good someday. And they were going to say no, nobody gets special treatment, which I thought was really good.
Just as a Nova player for a really long time, I've experienced that sort of community, and I think Bryce stepping in and saying, no, that's not cool, is definitely a big major first step, and not cool can go a long way. Growing up, kind of playing games for a long time, being in fighting game communities, going to fighting game tournaments and for a long time, I saw a lot of it, and as a young kid, I didn't think anything of it. I would see like the one girl in tournament and things like that get picked on, and Jim said not cool can go a long way. So it sounds like it's not that much, but it really can start to make a ripple effect and change communities like that. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and feel free. Yeah, you'll just get talk to me.
All right. Blue shirt, way in the back. You again.
Hey, so going back to one of the earlier questions, I just wanted to say something. Child's play. That's how we get a better reputation. And I don't think anyone in this room is not familiar with child's play, but the world at large probably isn't. So I don't know if you know this locally, partner hospitals are Johns Hopkins Children's Center and Children's National Medical. Local news media would be interested in the charity that is benefiting the local hospital. So even if you don't have thousands of dollars, you can give to child's play. You can write them and say, here's our partner hospitals, and hey, maybe you're doing a Guitar Hero event, whatever, and hey, here's this cool thing we're doing to support it. Just on that.
This is an excellent point. This is very true, right? We should highlight more of the good things we do. Because the game community does a lot of great stuff, including child's play. That sort of flies under the radar. I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it.
Oh no. And then I also had a question for you, which kind of ties back to what I was saying, some other things. My question was, do you think you can design for duty and social obligation? Do you think anyone is currently doing it? And is it an okay thing to do, or is it evil?
It only goes to extreme.
What is the middle ground? I saw some thoughts on your face. Do you want to come and join us, Tim? Yes, you do. Come and join us. By the way, if you've never been to one of our panels before, I scout the audience for our friends in the audience, because I feel like we can talk to us forever, but other cool people with other vastly different experience, if you want to ask them, I use them for their knowledge too. Come on up. Are you guys playing To The Moon? Woo! Are you hawking comics downstairs? Actually not.
Oh, jeez.
Right, I don't have enough for sale, but I have enough to give away. This is the life of a developer. All right, so the question was developing games thoughts on that. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I really need more direction because that's just directly approaching our values. Really, everything is a lot more personal, and the things we make tend to be a lot more personal as well. And I think frankly, giving that to our devices, people make personal things because they have things they want to get out. As far as
so I feel like you can definitely create a game that encourages certain value sets. We can certainly scarebox a lot of things, right? But the true value of games are is the watching. I feel like it's so critical. You guys probably saw the episode we did about propaganda games. This idea of giving the illusion of choice or implicating value set, whether or not I agree with it, because there are plenty of indie games that champion causes that I believe in. But to put that in a context where you think you're making choices but you're really not, or to weight those choices in such a way that they're deceptive, is to me very dangerous, and it's something that I think we have an obligation as designers to avoid. I think that we have an obligation to create, as I said earlier, a space of possibility for you to make your own choices within it and better understand yourself rather than directing you towards beliefs. That's just how I see it.
That loss of creativity and that loss of that if you want to, I don't believe that anybody who actually works in video games legitimately wants to make a game. I think if you are in video games, you love video games, you want to do good fucking games. But you got people there telling you, no, you're going to do this stupid shit, you're going to do that stupid shit, and you put that in the game. Oh, we want system shock free, or we want final shock free. It sucks. Yeah, because they're pushing you because it's a big cash out franchise. Final Fantasy 15, let's do it. Bullshit.
So you always want everything on time and on budget, right?
we'll just talk to the radio today. Let's make it do. I agree. I mean, in a way, I think you almost have to be selfish to be passionate about making a game. You know, you're essentially making what you want to play without getting around it. Or anything about it. And in a way, the fact that that often turns into financial loss, which, in a decent amount of good, sort of like damages sustainability, practical questions.
So, there is a certain we are on the record that there are things which I really not beginning to say. Thinking. So, there are, you're fine. If anyone wants tales of lovely working environments, although honestly, at the time I worked there, there was actually some quality assurance as well. But in a large corporate environment, it is not creativity that generally is not the goal, right? I think we've actually seen it do a great deal of harm to the bottom line of a lot of large corporations, and within and outside of the gaming space. But as far as this point about working on the thing that you want to build, it's actually interesting. I kind of disagree because I think you have to be passionate about it, you have to want to build it, but I think that there's this fine line of what I want to express versus the experience that I want to get, right? And to me, I feel like it's our job to let people have their own experience rather than be straight. But this is definitely something that is highly
And it depends on the business, because like, especially when you get into a bigger, larger corporation, there's like a lot of people's jobs at stake, and it can be very easy to like, I think you can go too far to an extreme in either way and cause damage. At the end of the day, people do still need to be eating. Like, you don't want people to be like just losing jobs left and right. But if you don't still like take some creative risks, then the product will suffer, and that will happen anyway. So I mean, that's just a balance that commercial art always is anyway. So, but yes, one from this side. You with the goatee. That was not specific enough. Yeah.
So, I see, and I've experienced a lot of people failing to use the grading system tools and everything that we have available to us. I've watched parents take their 5-year-olds to a show and watch them. And you watch parents buying very easily identifiable mature video games for their children. And when the store clerks say, you know, this is generally not appropriate for children, they just get blown off. And I'm wondering if there is where the disconnect is with these tools that are available, and how you have that conversation to, in part, yes, we are self-policing, and there are levels of experience. How do you have that conversation with an individual, like to another parent? You know, what game should I buy for my child? And how do you have that conversation as a community to the greater community to try to reach more people on this?
The problem with that is you ask what game you buy your child. A typical parent's going to say you buy the game you just once. Unfortunately, that is never the game that we as a community want them to play. It's to a point now that it seems hard to enforce any of these things, and it seems even harder to really get the message across to who needs to hear it, which is not us at all. It is the parents. There's this massive disconnect between the child seeing the advertisement or knowing the franchise is usually what it is in this case. Knowing the franchise is asking for the game, and the parents think, okay, this is the next thing we want. Barring any kind of like some kind of blatant, gross, like this game is terrible for your child and marker on advertisements, I don't know how we would do that.
EA tried that with the advertising stuff.
And the strength of that is working really well. It's just.
I make a quick point. Everyone in this room, raise your hand if you played an integrated game while you were under 18.
Probably all.
So the question is, right, for an M-rated, are there good M-rated games? Absolutely. Are there good R-rated movies? Yeah, of course. I think the thing is that in some ways it's evolving over time, right? As everybody in this room ends up growing up having kids, we will be better able to address the question of what games are quality, what games, because we're immersed in this media, right? Right now, you very often have parents hardly ask what game they should buy for their kid, and like, so do you play games, right? And they say no, right? As we all who understand the media, understand what quality is, or at least to some degree understand what quality is, because when you start buying games for kids, the problem is all that's up. And B, really the campaign is not to get people to not buy M-rated games. Really the campaign that we have to be thinking about is how to get parents playing games with their kids, right? Because games can be a very valuable medium. Even, I mean, we talk about TV. Even TV, if you're sitting there talking about it with your kid, working through, telling them about the history of husbands, has high value. But it can't just be babysitting, right? And so that's the question. Not how do we prevent people from buying M-rated games, but how do we get people to start having that experience with their child rather than leaving them alone with the experience of maybe
Maybe that will over time be less of an issue. I think, given any of us, if we were parents in some way, gamer parents, that would have never been an issue. We know right off the bat, this is a terrible franchise for a child to play. Here's 25 games I can think off the top of my head. One will be play. Hopefully it will be that
over time. Not so much. I also feel like the Wii sort of broke down some of those barriers between parent-child. Especially people like to knock on the Wii. I think it did a really great job integrating gaming with the family into like the mass market. And I am hoping that with Wii U, they'll be able to accomplish something similar to that. But I think that the idea that the unselling parent to sort of not use it as a babysitter and not see games as like this foreign thing that the kids just do to like waste time with, but as something that's actually intellectually stimulating, can be used to grow a child, can also be used to grow family time. It's a legitimate form of art.
Technically around 7. I know some of you may have some things you want to go to. We're
going to hang out. Yeah, whatever you want. We're going to hang out for as long as people have questions. So
as long as our voices hold out and you feel like holding your hand out, we will be here. So on that note. Oh man, we got 3 more questions. Let's go. Yes. Okay. This is you. Yes.
I'm going to go with high hopes and medium expectations. I would love to think that Black Isle is I haven't actually heard much from it. If you asked me 2 months after the UC, I'll have more knowledge about that. No one ever works there, so I haven't heard from anybody about what their qualities are going on there.
How many of you Black Isle have actually
not really understanding, which is on one hand a problem, on the other hand, could be a benefit, right? There is some chance that if they have just enough people to get the old quality and just enough new people to have fresh ideas. So we'll see.
All right, Richard. Yes.
Ooh, I think we should just walk all the way down.
I see a little promise out of it. I'm not really sold on it yet. I did back it. At the very least, I can use it as a media center. I feel like they haven't sold that angle yet. Like, if anyone has a Roku box and has utilized PlayOn, you can get a lot of different media channels from that. Use that as like basically instead of buying a media PC tower, you can just use a little box. And Ouya can do that too. And they said basically you can tinker with it, do whatever you want. So that has a lot of promise. I don't think they sell basically the openness of the platform really well. But if not, and they kind of just let it ride, then I'm not sure where it's gonna end up.
For me, it's all about how open and accessible it really is. It doesn't sound as open now as it did in the beginning. If you were a game maker right now, ask yourself, would I be focusing on making a video game? I can answer for you, no. And so for me, that's the line.
It seems like in having specifically chosen to not necessarily compete directly with the other main consoles. I mean, the next generation of consoles is not far off. I guess it's technically started with the Wii U. So they kind of are already sort of niching themselves from the beginning. And it could be that they really find a really strong niche there. I was kind of in a wait-and-see mindset ever since it was first announced. So I don't know. You were telling me what some thoughts on playing.
So for me, again, high hopes, low expectations, right? The problem with UVA is it's coming out at a time where it's going to compete with much higher power systems. And now that we've got the Steam box, right? The Steam box is effectively an open platform. I mean, yes, you have the game of Steam itself, but it's a PC, right? Super easy to develop for. Anybody can develop for it if they own a PC. This is a dangerous marketplace to be stepping in at this point, right? You're going to get flooded with new consoles in the next year. We have a software library which is highly questioned, right? The Android library
not super strong as is, a lot of those games don't scale up, right? So you have something that's resolution for a phone is not going to actually scale up resolution-wise for HTTP. So there's a lot of games that will have to be produced specifically for the Amiga. So it really just depends, like everything. So sorry, I have this problem that we still haven't learned as console manufacturers that your launch title lineup in your first year software is actually what sells the box and not the hardware itself, right? And that's what's going to sell or kill the Wii. Does it have good games that I want to play? If no, then it's just going to die slowly, right? And
See the beta.
Exactly. Right? I would love to, and I would love a reason why. I usually buy every system that comes out for free just because. I don't know the video because I haven't seen a title that really has the product. And I feel like we just feel the same way, and that you really have that big selling point online, but online is now dead, so I'm unsure. It's actually really hard to pack anything into the space, except the code itself. And I'm not too concerned over the fight for assets. And I think we're going to try and do some articles. They have done a lot. They've abused the legal system in several cases over years. But I'm not too concerned because in isolated instances, you may find some major corporation that can do some damage with it. I don't think it would be a ubiquitous block on creating games. Right? I mentioned this in the panel earlier. Wizards of the Coast has had a patent on trading card games for 20 years. We've seen how that stopped trading card games.
All right. Yes, in Southern Church.
That came towards the end of the year, there was some controversy over the ending of Mass Effect 3. Fans were not satisfied with it, or disappointed, and it made so much of a response that Fiverr ended up going back and releasing a extended cut at the end. So, the question is, like, having played the game, what was your impression of the ending, thoughts on the situation, and what are your thoughts on the idea of going back and changing the game once it's used in response to criticism or fans?
James can't talk because he hasn't played it yet. So I haven't done Mass Effect 3 yet. It's one of those games that I love. Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of this generation, no question. But I keep looking at that and when I hit the box, it's 40 hours. And I have no time. Go right ahead. No spoilers.
Things were just, I part of the satisfaction of it was that things were not so intentionally big. And in a sense, the players could headcanon their own endings, but it's just not satisfactory. And I think with Mass Effect 3, it's that they give, it's almost like an uncanny valley between decisions that matter and decisions that don't matter. Because they give the illusion of full control of the happenstances and whatever happens to other games. But at the very end, it seems like everything leads toward one thing. So I think it's that almost uncanny valley that's
I actually did play Mass Effect 3, and it's still honestly one of my favorite games of this year. Like, I can understand why people had frustration with the ending. I personally didn't have a problem with the original one. Like, it definitely was very brief, and it doesn't leave you with a lot of closure, which I think is really, deep down, the only thing that was really bothering most people. There's lots of, if you dig down, there's lots of kind of holes you can poke in things, and you can, I don't know, stay as vague as I can. But really, I think those games are so much about, like, your story and the story of your shepherd and your shepherd's crew, and to have that ending that kind of left a lot of stuff really vague and just not knowing where anything stood really at the end of it. I think just the thing that really bothered me about the way the whole thing played out was that wasn't really with the ending. Like, it left me kind of wanting more, but I didn't necessarily dislike the original ending, and I do actually like the extended ending a little bit better. But I started feeling really uncomfortable with the sheer volume, like a fan outcry, and level of like demand that they were owed a new ending, that they were like.
Well, I can consider personally, I've spent maybe $200 or more on Mass Effect products, not just the games, like the novels, comics,
DLC.
Yes.
Sure.
So after and spent over 100 hours on the game. So from that perspective, after going through all that, it might be that player understandably expecting to feel some satisfaction at the end of all.
Which I can understand, and I felt a little bit of that myself, and I can totally understand that other people feel that way too. It's just when it comes to regarding this medium as an art, I get really uncomfortable with the idea that where a space where the audience can demand that the artist change their vision to match what we want and expect. I don't think art can survive properly in that environment. And this is a commercial where we're talking about, so there is still like the matter of like customer satisfaction. So it kind of gets a little messy there, but I really only wanted BioWare to go back and change that ending if they felt they could do it better. If they looked at it and like maybe they ran out of time, or maybe there was some other constraint, and they just thought, you know what, I think the fans are right. We could have done that better. This isn't quite how I wanted this to turn out. And so then they go in and change things. If they were just it was pretty risky ending. I mean, I have to admit. And if they had made that decision, the people in charge had made that decision, all right, we're going to do this ending thing, and then if they had gone in and then changed it to just basically the kind of ending everybody wanted just because we all told them to, that would really bum me out. Like, I really, really don't want to see that happen. I did not want to see that precedent set. And so that was really worrisome watching it play out. But I feel like what they ended up doing was kind of a nice compromise. They didn't compromise, because fundamentally it is still the same ending, but it provides more information and more detail, so it gives you a little bit more of that sense of closure that was needed. And they added an additional ending in there, which while some people may say, oh, that's kind of the bad screw you ending, I still think there's kind of something really nice about that ending too. I still think it's pretty kind of badass ending in its own right. So, I don't know. All that aside, up until that last 15 minutes, that is one of the best games I've played all year. And so, so if it's just that 0.5% of the game that really sends me table flipping, the rest of it is so awesome. It was excellent game all around. So yeah.
I'm basically in complete agreement. I'll never forget this controversy because I played the game. I reviewed the game a week before it came out. So I was playing it, and I felt like for the most part it was highly satisfactory. I really enjoyed it. At the end, I was kind of like, really? Okay. I wasn't extremely angry about it. And then when the game came out, the controversy just absolutely blew up, and I had to report on it. So I looked up why people thought it wasn't an unsatisfactory ending, and I agreed with many of the points, and I tried to present the points as fairly as possible. But at the end of the day, I didn't think it was that much of a travesty, and I completely agree that they should have stuck to their guns and not have changed it. they really wanted to basically uphold their artistic vision of what they wanted. But at the same time, it's really hard as a gamer because I definitely understand because I invested my time from the beginning, basically, and to see nothing happen at the end, and see all these characters that have grown to connect with and love, nothing. It was really tough, but at the same time, I think the greater good is to not sacrifice.
Yeah, we've been talking about wanting games to be an art form for so long that I think that it was kind of disheartening for me to suddenly see a lot of people turn around and say, no, games are a service, and you owe me the ending I'm due. Like, that really, like, even if I absolutely hated the ending, that would have made me uncomfortable. Like, I feel like it's not, in a way it is our story because it is our, like, to an extent, because it is the story that we are telling, but it's the one that they've created for us to tell ourselves, basically. So I feel like to say that, like, video game storytelling is kind of like a collaboration almost. Like, the story they're telling you and the space they're creating for you to tell the stories to yourself. And for us to collectively say, no, you did it wrong, you need to change your ending, is basically taking all control in that collaboration and saying, no, like, I'm repeating myself. Yeah, exactly. I'm repeating myself at this point. But, yes. Okay.
So I'll tell you where they did do it wrong. I worked so hard to get my entire crew and Commander Shepard killed in 2, and then they tell me to jump out in 3. Come on.
Good answer. All right, Richard. Wait, I already called on you. I should call somebody else. That's not fair.
I'm still waiting on that answer.
We are still waiting on that. Man versus Design. You guys have to think about this one too. I saw some people in the front row. Yeah, go for it. I've seen you guys wait for like an hour or so. Yeah, do it.
I've been interested in sound design games, tracks like the sound effects and how to add that to the game. What do you think makes a good sound design game?
Okay, so I have a blank answer. I usually don't.
But also, what's a good example of a game with really good sound?
Dead Space is actually.
I was going to say anything that someone's going to say Dead Space. So I would ask you why you think it's good sound design, not putting on the spot.
So, to me, the sound design in Dead Space is because it is, and I'm actually going to do it again, which I don't think is probably funny for other who really good sound design. But the reason I think Dead Space sound design is because we managed to encapsulate the environment and the characters simultaneously. And in a lot of cases, there's more attention to detail in that sound design than in a lot of the, especially shooter games I see. And then finally, how to say this without vulgarities? Let's just say their sound effects aren't compressed to shit.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know if we had this war on how loud we make our gunshots in most like first-person shooters, and so you're getting more compressed sound waves, and just we're getting close to static for those gunshots for most modern games. But yeah, Dead Space is a big one for me. If you like sound design, this can sound ridiculous, but watch Down the Tap. It's actually phenomenal because if you guys watch it, I don't know if you guys have seen it. Great series, by the way. It's like Jane Austen, but today. There are a lot of sound effects that couldn't possibly be heard from the perspective of the camera. That they're going back and adding in to make you feel the presence of that environment, even though it's totally unrealistic. And so it's actually, it's really good sound design, even though it's not what the camera is here.
I wanted to, it didn't work, but I wanted to trap you into saying that, because I hear it all the time, Dead Space 3, or Dead Space in general is good sound design, because you've heard this, or you've heard that, you've heard that. But from all the audio people I spoke to, they quietly call out Dead Space because they say, you notice that. And everyone says Dead Space. So in my mind, that's not great sound design. Because it sticks out so much. And in my opinion, I reviewed, I think I reviewed the first 2 games. in both, I said, look, there's way too many jump out horror moments that are directly connected to the audio. There's no finesse at all in any of these games. All the design in itself is cool, but as far as the effectiveness goes, it's not there at all.
So to me, it's funny because I all the time hear sound designers in the industry. I don't know if you've heard the joke about, well, if it has great sound design, they'll say it has great graphics.
Right.
And if you hire graphics producer, it's really true. It's a lot of games that have good sound design, it is much better seen. I mean, honestly, my favorite sound design game ever is the first game I ever saw, because of the influence of the motion detector, right? And the design of that, I still do. Like, it sounds vaguely similar to that. And
so that's super effective sound design.
Right. And it was one solid. So I agree with you. I mean, that Dead Space is the opposite side of that spectrum for the amount of things they have going on. I think it was much less damage than the first time. And the polling was actually good, right? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know about you, but there are so many games where I hear decelerating crystals or you break some of the arms.
Flat mics,
right?
No tweaking, just the most plain-faced Foley that you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Insulting you bad.
We're actually really bad at sound design video games.
But again, no finesse.
Yeah, really, it's actually true. People really look and really listen to a lot of games. I'm sure you notice this coming over and over again.
Because, well, I went to Treyarch this past summer, and I sat in with the sound team a little bit in their studio while I screwed around. And these guys bend over backwards to, there's so many available sound libraries that cost, $2,000, $5,000, and you can just type in the name of what you want. The sound file pulls up, you play it, and you tweak it until it's just different enough, or at least somewhat effective for your game, and then you plop it in. Treyarch, they don't mess around. Everything's handwork, everything's hand tweaked. They've circuit bent toys. They've literally created instruments, poking at things with screwdrivers and twisting wires together and making weird firing noises. And the smallest noises you will never hear or notice in the game, but they all add, like the joke. The best sound design people say is the best graphics in the world. It really is that. So much of the presentation of the game, even if you're not a Call of Duty fan, I'm not at all, is how much small, highly detailed, perfectly mixed. And to answer your question, that's what I think is really exciting. Just like when they super convincing.
It's funny because I actually think you're right. Now, the more I think about Dead Space is simply the fact that
it's glaring. It's like,
even though it's so much, right? I think actually the only reason I like it is because of how handmade most of our other sound design is. Because
this is so creative.
Yeah, at least they actually build their own sounds for stuff. But you're right. It is really glaring, and in some places it is actually grating. I have to think because there's some games that have gorgeous soundscape that actually.
Reds. Yeah.
Well, so the question is where you draw the line between music and soundscape, right? I'm trying to think of ones that I'm trying to raise my mind with music, right? It's so influential in some ways.
The sound design that's complementary to music blows my mind. That's very killer every time. Nintendo sound designers do that a lot. If you play Journey, there's a lot of beautiful, like a beautiful tie between the sound design and the music.
The music in Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus is perfect. Kills me every time. Sound in general, the most recent all UI,
and of course, I always like the old Sound of the Hills, but again, that's more on the music side, although whether you call that music.
It's always good.
Have you ever seen the wing games?
Yes.
Oh, it's nice.
Okay. Huge happy yellow fan. It's amazing. Yes.
How weird is it that it's the same way?
Pretty weird.
Okay. This side. We're still thinking about society, men versus society. Somebody's still thinking about it. Okay, James is still thinking about it. Yeah, let's keep working on the front row. You.
I find that moral systems in games are very flawed, especially in the middle game that are marginalized or ignored.
True fact. That is my confidence. We're just terrible monsters. I mean, we did a whole story about this idea that we can put a moral choice on playing a game bar. Well, of course, the moral choice of the game is going to come out as two dimensions. I feel like, I'll keep it short, I feel like faction systems are much better. Rather than having moral choice being exogenous, right? As a designer, I decide whether this action is good or this action is bad. Having being diamonds where you do this action, different groups within this game will respond to it differently, so some see it as good and some see it as bad. And so the world itself has a living set of morals per society.
Dragon Age is
There's a lot of them, but I mean, that's a little bit more expensive to do, but creates so much more of a richer state and allows you to understand more about yourself from who you associate with within the game than simply dictated by your role.
Yeah, Dragon Age is actually a really great example. Just having your party members' influence go up and down with each decision you make, and you can kind of choose, and it really just depends on which party member you care about has a good opinion of you.
Nobody matters what the dog.
And in itself, like that system also lets you get you to understand your party members better too, like exactly like. So, really great system to direct the chat. Okay, all right. Farewell to our historic other friends. By the way, have a nice time. Thanks a lot.
Walking did actually do a remarkably good job for me. Unfortunately, there were still points where I noticed and was able to, even without me playing it, see where it was the illusion of choice rather than the real choice. There are places where you see that, yes, any answer, this diametry is valid, right? Or this later event is valid. What else have I been playing recently? That really is, I got lost in. That's a good question. I went back and have been playing some, what was that game? I'll leave a moment to think of the name of the game. You go.
Yeah. And the problem is when you start like applying critical thinking and stuff, it's really hard to turn that faucet off. Like I'm finding the same thing with film now that I've been watching film a lot more critically. And eventually you kind of get to a point where the appreciation that you find in something that does something well is almost the same sort of feeling. Like it's, wow, they just did that so well. It's not quite the same thing as being completely engaged in it, but it kind of feels the same. I just recently finished The Unfinished Swan, which I really like. And it's part of it is that aesthetic stuff like really draws me in very like much more easily, but it kind of had that quality that a lot of that game company's work has that really just completely sucks me. It was a really charming experience all the way through. I've been playing Far Cry 3 actually as well, and I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like completely sucked me in and I'm not being critical of it as I'm playing through, but there are definitely some moments where I'm kind of usually when I see like a little fort area that I'm scoping out and wanting to take over as stealthily as possible, I didn't totally get like into the completely immersed in it. But it does become rare.
So I guess for me, I would also say Thomas Was Alone in the first half of it was very compelling to me. And I've been playing a not very big game about a grand strategy about World War I, Command of the Great War, that while I would freely admit that it is rife with chaos, it really got me to just grind my teeth at the futility and stupidity of that war. It is the most unfun war game you will ever play, because you do nothing but grind. You're just sitting there losing units on both sides forever without anyone moving anywhere. Really though, yeah, welcome to World War I. Did a remarkably good job with that. What would we do if I was anything else? I should have something there, but you gotta have something good. Or that.
Like mine's just what's the overall walking head right now.
It's true. One of those very surprised. What is the next step going to do? And I didn't really do it.
Let's just go to this sense of the
That's actually really good. Yeah, I actually played. That was a wonderful time. Order the span.
All right, games to take off. So, thanks all. Thank you.
Fantastic game.
All right, this side. White sleeve, long shirt. Yes.
What are your thoughts on like the pros and cons of like this game?
I'm 7 a.m. fire drills. I really don't like it.
I was like, this is kind of like going back to like the Steam match, like the hardness of like the console more, like with like even like the Wii U and the PS3.
I think it is silly how we find things to associate ourselves with, but we use this in games all the time, right? If I were to in this room, well, maybe not in this way, since subscribers are still coming, but if I were to shout for the horde, right? A bunch of people would shout it back, and a bunch of people would boo, right? Because we as human beings have this need to associate ourselves with things. And in that association, we need to have a binary delineation, right? We need to say, this is good, which means that this other thing has to be bad. That's a false dichotomy, but we have this feeling that we need to make it, and seeing it in the concept wars is the most ridiculous form of that I think I've ever, more ridiculous paid $190 for this box. Now I must defend it every minute I can on the internet as harshly as possible. So to me, it's ridiculous, and I understand the inherent need and the use of games like all the time to do this thing, but I think that any time we do this, we need to take that step back and look at ourselves and be like, is this a thing that really, is this who I am, right? Is this thing me? Do I need to fight for this thing? Does this thing need me to fight for it? And I think the answer to all these questions is no, in the case of a chunk of plastic you put on your desk.
I think that moment of mental clarity comes right around the same moment that you're suddenly able to afford to buy whatever video game system you want. And you suddenly realize that, oh, this was stupid all this time. Now I can just buy them. So, this side. Okay. Someone's pointing a hand up, and someone else next is saying, that person. Amazing.
So this is true. I mean, my biggest suggestion to all you guys is just create games. It doesn't even matter if they're digital games, right? I've said to several of you guys, at least in this room, that the designers should be able to scale faster. Make those first couple of games. It doesn't matter if you're doing gaming. It doesn't matter if you're doing an action script, right? As somebody who's going through a CS major, you can bang out a half dozen games a year, and that experience will really help. From there, the other things. Programming is very valuable. As a designer, you won't need much more than scripting. So I would say that really try and spend the time deconstructing experiences, right? Like, look back at games not as a player, but understand, we discussed earlier, how rule sets generate specific experiences, because that's what you're trying to put together as the underlying meaning of the game. Don't just put things that you think are pieces of games you've seen before together, but really look at why each of those pieces in the game does what it does, right? Why doesn't Mario have momentum on his jump? And there's very clear answer there, right? If you guys have played Little Big Planet characters do retain momentum when they move and jump. And I think most of you guys will, who have played both, will be able to feel the difference in the control, right? And what it does. Other than that, game jams are always great. Just spending a day kicking out an idea and then being done and being able to walk away from it is very strong. Are you looking to go to post-undergrad or whatever, to graduate school, or are you looking to go straight to industry? Oh, sure. Both are strong schools. RIT is a good CS school, but slightly worse on the game design side. Digipen is an excellent CS school with excellent game design, but is remarkably expensive, which is really unfortunate. My other recommendation is, do you want to go to the AAA industry, or do you want to, in the end, like, sort of go the breaking route and make stuff for yourself? If you want to go to the AAA industry, start going to GDC every year if you can, and try to get an internship just as soon as possible, because just that environment, that experience of being there, working on a real major title is invaluable. And to do that, it really is sort of about what you know. This industry, we're very bad at hiring. We have no metrics for what makes a good designer, right? There is no really good universal design test that will tell you, is this person worth bringing on the team? And so it really is important to go to conferences like GDC and start with people who can take your resume out of how all the other student resumes go to and say, actually, look at this one. So I guess that would be my basic advice for right now. Sure, Jeff. So as a designer, I have very rarely had the luxury of using the same English twice. Everybody has Let's see. I would go either Lua or Python, and really, you get a lot of knowledge out of both. But a designer's one of the designer's basic will need is the ability to learn quickly, right? And so just see how you pick something, pick anything, and just see how quickly you can go from I have never actually seen before to basically super simply, right? Like one level of platform or whatever. Top-down shooters are a lot easier now that I think about it than a platform to start with, because you don't have to worry about character control as much. But yeah, just pick something and run with it. But Python really, if you just want something random. Or action script if you want something that you can get stuff out of paper. There's high value in throwing stuff on company and having to experience the internet giving you feedback. It's painful, but very valuable.
All right, Kingdom Hearts, sure, you've been very patient.
Yes, and that was the second time I'm I wanted to ask you the question that I asked you kind of sort of earlier.
Sure.
Is, Dear Esther, can it be considered a game?
Can it just be considered a game? See, I feel like game is, at this point, a term that we may need to grow past, right? Because direct investors could be an interactive experience. If we're going to call it a game, we need to know what a game means. Nobody can agree on what a game means. And do we care? Is it important? Does that bring the issue over this delineation of interactive experience or non-interactive experience have any value? And I'm not sure I any longer see value in this delineation of what makes a game, right, versus what is the thing that I experience. That was a very long-winded answer. But I really don't have an answer, actually. I don't know. To me, I experienced that's much that I can say.
We're seeing what fits into the world kind of game, like, we're seeing games that do an increasingly wide array of different things and filling a wide, like, from educating people to just straight up entertainment to, there's all sorts of different things that games are being and doing that I think it's, like, I agree, it's not really a debate worth getting too far forward.
And we've spent so much time, like, so much of the intellectual capacity of the design community has been spent trying to answer that question.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening on the other end too. Like, some people will eventually start, like, will question, like, you get like games like the Metal Gear games, like, how are those more game or film? And which, to me, like, well, I don't have a problem with there being kind of a film game hybrid sort of subgenre area. I mean, we enjoy Metal Gear games for what they are. We, like, Dear Esther is its own kind of thing, and I'm excited to see many more applications of applying some level of interactivity to any other genre, really. Like, I mean, visual novels have like the barest minimum of interactivity, but we still kind of fit them into the game genre, and even if we don't, it doesn't really matter. They are what they are. So, I don't know.
And I also have a second question, just this one's shorter. What is your opinion on the Slender Man game that is going on right now, where it's literally like you have to collect this, and this while being chased by the monster?
So Slenderman is actually the best example of sound design that I have actually. The gameplay itself is non-existent, but it doesn't matter, right? Because if it had been any longer than a 3-minute experience, it would totally fail. But it's not. It's the correct way. You have that environment which is highly tense, they build up the tension, and then they release the tension in a very effective way, right? For that, I mean, it's a very well done product. Is it anything that I think will become a genre? Do I think it could be more, right? Do I think that if somebody had a big budget and could make a 4-hour something, no, that would be terrible.
Actually,
right, it's going to be
it's starting to be. From what I hear, it's going to be okay because of the people who are controlling it. It's the guys that do that Marvel when it's show on the internet.
But I think that the experience itself was effective in relation to what it was.